Hey guys, Lewis here. Just want to give you guys a quick little note before the actual video starts. I've been having a lot of issues with episode 2 of XCOM 2 Overwatch in terms of editing and rendering its audio. So I just wanted to bring this up with you guys before the actual video starts. So the audio issues, I've been having a lot of audio issues over the last few months, mainly some of the audio clipping in and out or just missing altogether, or my voice being distorted. I've managed to solve those issues, so that's good. I do have some minor audio issues though, which I'm still trying to resolve, but in this case the issues in this video is my voice sounds like I'm going through a wind tunnel, or where I sound very loud or echoey or muffled. So those are the audio issues for this video, and I believe it has something to do with my rendering, and I am looking into it. But I have done what I can to try to fix the audio so that I do sound a little bit more clear, so that you can actually understand what I'm saying rather than sounding like a distorted chipmunk of some sort. The other issue I had with this particular episode, I had a pretty big conundrum of whether to split the video into 2 parts or not, because it is pretty long. It is almost an hour and a half, and I thought about splitting it into 2 parts because I don't want to make you guys sit through something that long. But at the same time, it's a slideshow video, and that, to me, is like, that's not much to split the video up into 2 parts over. Because if it were actual gameplay footage, then I would actually take the time and split it apart. That's no problem. The thing I'm saying here is there's not much to the video itself aside from me talking with my buddy Cory about the design of XCOM 2 in general. And so I decided to keep it all together. I did post a question on Facebook to some of you, and some of you had private messaged me or posted on the post itself saying, you didn't really mind if it was long or not. So I decided to keep it together. So I hope you understand my decision on that. Anyway, that's enough out of me. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of XCOM 2 Overwatch. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, Lewis here, and welcome back to XCOM 2 Overwatch. Joining me in this episode will be Cory.
Hello guys, I'm Cory.
Now you guys may remember Cory from some of my previous videos I've done on my channel before. He's joined me in some other one-offs like No More Room in Hell, we did a little bit of Forest together, and a few other things. But you guys aren't here for that, you guys are here for XCOM 2 Overwatch, obviously. This episode's topic is going to be more freeform compared to the story-driven one I did in the first episode, which, by the way, thank you guys so much for the overwhelming amount of support on that. Had no idea that you guys would be enjoying this little mini-series that much, and, you guys are awesome. Anyway, so the topics for this one is basically going to be design-based. It's like we're going to be talking about all the new designs of when it comes to character creation, the weapon designs, the alien designs, base design. It's design galore, basically. But we will talk a little bit about the geoscape, but that is going to be a topic I will be touching on more in the next episode. But without further ado, let's move on. Now, Cory, I'm pretty sure you remember this handsome squad right here.
Oh yeah, my squad, man. We were kicking it. Look at me and my awesome yellow set of armor there.
Yes, indeed. Cory was also a part of the XCOM squads in XCOM Enemy Within. Part of the Charlie squad, much to Alpha and Bravo's chagrin. But looking at this image here, what do you see when it comes to the armor and the weapon design, Cory?
It's obviously this is pretty high-tech stuff. We're pretty big, beefy guys wearing some really nice, slick-looking piece of armor. It's probably some high technology stuff that we probably ripped off the aliens.
Yep. Almost all of XCOM's tech is a hybrid of both human innovation as well as alien technology and design.
Yes.
And looking at it, of course, everything is pretty bulky. The weapons themselves are huge in comparison.
Yeah. Might just dislocate your shoulder while firing it.
Comparing XCOM Enemy Unknown / Enemy Within, And moving on forward, I'll just refer to the XCOM reboot game as just XCOM 1 because it's easier for me to say it that way. Comparing XCOM to XCOM 2 now, how about the new designs? What do you think about this now, Cory?
Well, it's significantly different. You don't have all the great high tech like I last saw, all the really flashing lights of what looks like, all the alien tech. This looks like a bunch of just kind of random gear, probably salvage more or less, but they still got some tech. They're using exosuits now, which is the red guy, what he's wearing, some metal alloy suits, but even your commander, the guy who's in green right in front of us, he's just wearing a combination of probably Kevlar and leather armor, and that's pretty basic.
Yeah, and your description right there is pretty on point. What you see here is the XCOM Resistance Squad right here, one of them anyway, and it's a pretty ragtag group. I mean, they are using somewhat more advanced tech, so this is indicative of more advanced gameplay later on in XCOM 2. But, like you said, it is more subdued compared to XCOM. XCOM was pretty flashy with the sleekness and all the lights. Now this is more indicative of a ragtag group that's salvaging, using, and whatever they can get their hands on, as well as we are a guerrilla organization now. We are hit and run, get in, get out, don't draw attention to yourselves. And the technology also reflects that. The exosuit, EXO, if you will, as they want to pronounce it as. Well, it does represent that cybernetics is still very much a thing, obviously, in this futuristic world, because it is 20 years in the future. It is 2035 now. And we don't have the facilities to create a giant mech such as the one you saw in the last screenshot, so we have to compromise for something in between. What gives you more combat effectiveness, but at the same time not over the top.
Over the top robust.
Yeah,
that
and
probably cost a lot of material.
Yeah, and the exosuit is very indicative. That gives you that extra edge in combat, but you're not going to be walking around in a giant mech suit. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to both sides of here. And the Kevlar armor thing, like you said, it is pretty much Kevlar. That is base technology. The other ones are using some of the other armor types that are available in the game. I do know some of them by name. I believe that's a spider armor tech, actually.
The girl in the yellow?
Yeah. Basically, it operates on the same aspects as the skeleton armor, which was slightly lighter armor, offers you some defense, and has a grappling hook. I believe that is what it is. Don't quote me just yet, because I may have my info wrong. But, it really does kind of remind me of like they're getting ready for some sort of extreme football, like Blood Bowl or something of the sort.
Yeah.
Alright, but moving on, let's see. We have a bit of the UI design and the character creation design. When you look at this, Cory, what is your attention drawn to the most?
It's towards the character, more or less. It's just, judging from XCOM's first UI design, because I have it pulled up here on my screen on my end.
Yep.
It's a lot cleaner. It has more of a depth of field feel to it, which we all like. It's like the game that makes me think that utilized a really good UI was like Dead Space. That was like one of my favorite UI designs ever. And
the fact that it was also real time lended a sense of urgency. Like, you'll be going through your inventory and then a face pops right through.
That's a really good UI, and I recommend to that any game developer anytime.
Yeah.
For this game in particular, they've obviously updated their UI where it's not these bright neon cyan blue colors. They toned it down.
Yeah, it's not opaque blocks.
Yeah, it's now this premise is on the character itself.
Yeah, and like you said, when I look at this, my attention is immediately drawn to the character, not like the loadouts that they have to the sides. And looking at the design, it also reminds me of like a Apple device apps window, like when you scroll out of your apps and it just presents all the apps that you have open currently.
Yes.
That's what it kind of reminds me of onto the side there. But everything you see here, like everything you need to know about the character what they look like and their weapons, it's all displayed very neatly. The depth of view is not too harsh on the eyes. It's very nicely done here. The UI is less cluttered, kind of to be assumed since it's going to be more PC oriented because this is going to be a PC port only. At least for now. We'll have to see in the future.
Maybe if they put it on the new gen consoles. We'll see about that. But
well, that's how it goes. I mean, Firaxis did go on record saying they wanted to make XCOM 2 PC exclusive because that's what they do best.
And that's fine.
Yeah, and I feel like
is always these kind of strategy games always work best on the PC. Personally, I think it's
yeah.
It's a lot easier to work with mouse and keyboard with them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I believe the XCOM Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within. Sorry, I keep doing that force of habit. XCOM 1, the UI design, I feel like it was more of a compromise just so that it could be generally used both on the console, the PC, and its iOS port.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah. But, moving on, we have a little bit of the character creation. Now, this is going to be a topic that I will be broaching more in the next episode, but I did want to talk about this a little bit more in terms of its design aspect. The amount of character creation for the characters is staggering. I was watching a video earlier today, and the amount of customizations I saw available is mind-blowing. Like, looking at the hats alone, I was thinking, this is Team Fortress 2 for XCOM.
Oh man, that sounds true.
Yeah, I know. And once again, some of these customizations are actually locked by factors such as rank and time. Like, the further more you progress in the game, the more you unlock, of course. Also, DLC is another thing to think about, like more hats, more patterns, more customization, more everything. And once again, rank, like I said. Scars, for example. You won't see scars on rookies, although that would be interesting to see for backstory. Like, this character had their face clawed off by a chrysalid, but he's still in the fight and kicking. But, I mean, obviously they don't want to do that because, you know, you don't want to spend 2 hours on a rookie and then have him go into the fight and die.
You don't want to invest your time and then just lose it suddenly to, you know, just a minor alien fight. That'd be humiliating.
Yeah. Once again, though, we'll be talking more about the character creation aspects and some of its mechanics, such as the character save pool and the VIP stuff in the next episode. But, like I said, I wanted to focus a little bit on the design aspect of the character creation. And, Cory, what do you think about this level of customization available to the character?
It's honestly one of my favorite things with new video games and video games in general. People really like adding your own lore to the game when you get to add a certain personality to your character.
Oh yeah.
And much like your series, Lewis, which you love adding your own, you like adding your viewers to your XCOM games. So this just gives it more of a feel, more personal
touch.
Just more more personal touch. It's just more personality.
Definitely. There's actually going to be something later on in this episode where it does add a very nice personal touch, but we'll touch on that when we get there. Not only do we have character creation, though, we do have weapon customization, and not just the aesthetics, we are also talking functionality. Compared to XCOM's weapons design, what do you think of XCOM's weapons compared to XCOM's 2 weapons?
Well, from what we see here, the shotgun, and comparing it to XCOM 1's shotgun, the original XCOM had a pretty blocky design. Looks a little awkward. A gun that probably would just dislocate your whole shoulder if you shot it, or just completely break your arm.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's an awkward flashlight piece to it, but this shotgun, they've obviously put a lot more thought into it, and probably just more of a creative team towards it.
Definitely. I feel like its new design is much more elegant, as well as lends more functionality compared to the original looking shotgun from XCOM. It looks more shotgun-esque, if that's the thing.
It does. Yeah, I would agree.
And I did mention that there is functionality, so that the shell holder right there, that's just not for looks compared to XCOM 1 where you had the shotgun shells there. They didn't actually do anything. Now we have attachments we can add to our
weapon. So each weapon can be its own thing. Like this could be a fast reloading shotgun, this could be a full-out damage shotgun, etc. And that kind of customization, I'll touch on the weapon character, not weapon character, what is that? That'd be awesome. Weapon customization further in the next episode. But the functionality of adding attachments to add on to an aesthetic feel for making that shotgun feels like it belongs to this particular character. Is like, this is their baby right here. This is what they kill aliens with. And I believe the attachments go up to, I think, a maximum of 3 attachments per weapon. I think it's based on tech level. Assuming Firaxis decides to go with the basic standard for tech levels, there's probably 3 tech levels. So it's going to be ballistic, mag tech, and then plasma tech probably. But that's my guess for now.
Moving on to enemy designs here, which I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with now. Let's talk about some of the enemies we will be facing. Starting off with 2 types here. We have the Advent Troopers, which you see in the background there, and the Advent Captain. But let's touch on the Troopers first. So Cory, when you see the Troopers back there, what does your mind immediately think of from a design-wise?
Design-wise, they look really well designed. How should I put this? Their armor looks really well sophisticated, and they look menacing in their own right. They look authoritative.
Definitely.
I guess one way I could put it too. Very good authoritative figure.
Yeah. When I look at it, I kind of like to base my comparison on this. When you look at it, it looks like a ODST trooper from the Halo series, and that's mostly because their exposed mouthpiece looks like a visor if you're looking at it from a distance, especially the one on the left. He looks like he's an ODST trooper, but it's actually just the exposed mouthpiece, which I thought it was a really nice touch, and I also do like the shock trooper look.
Yeah, people really like this kind of new design with the helmet, kind of the whole exposed mouth. It makes me think of the game EVE Online.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Valkyries? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to that sort of ordeal.
But like you said, they definitely give you the impression we are a sophisticated security force and we will not hesitate to exercise our authority. And speaking of authority, that brings us to the Advent Captain here. When you look at him, what do you think of him compared to his underlings?
He's probably got some more high tech on him. And from a design standpoint, I mean, just because it's black and red, and that just pops instead of just the full black. Yeah. So it just gives him more of an authoritative figure, and it probably gives him a sense of a hierarchy. So he's probably got more high tech on him than his regular troopers do. Yeah, and looking at it, seeing as Advent is the aliens' puppet government, these aren't just humans under the armor. They're actually modified humans. We don't even know if there's humans left, actually, because as described in the book, the Advent uses human-esque forms here, but we're not sure if they're actually still humans. Like I said, they have a human-like body. They have a human-like mouth, a somewhat visible nose you can see, but they describe the upper part of the head as their ears being flattened against the head, almost non-existent. They have large eyes and no pupils, and they speak in an altogether different language that isn't really recognizable. So the Resistance kind of nicknamed them the Jabbers for jibber jabber. And when I think of that, it makes me think, like, if you look at the statue, the ethereal statue in the background, its helmet design covering its face is very flattened, it's sleek and angular. I feel like the aliens are designing the Advent humans to match them in their take on their form in creation, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I can agree with that. They're kind of bending, molding the humans in their own way. Yeah, that fit the ways they want it to. Yeah, and I know some of you would be more interested in hearing about these abilities of these various enemies types, but that's going to be a couple episodes from now. I am going to be doing a tactical analysis on the enemy types and how best to counter them.
probably with explosives, because XCOMs always loves explosives. But moving on from the Advent Trooper and its captain, oh, I should mention, Advent does play both gender roles, so you could encounter female versions probably. Alright, so moving on to this image here, we've already covered the Advent Trooper, but in the background we have a whole line of Advent mechs. What do you think of the Advent mechs?
They look really sophisticated, really tall and menacing. Highly mechanical robots. I mean, they always kind of remind me as of like miniature like Titans from the game Titanfall almost.
Oh yeah. Well, as you can see, the Advent mechs is very similar to the original mech design from XCOM, but obviously XCOM 2 only takes place when we lose, therefore we never even got to the point where we could field our own mech troopers. But when you look at these mechs though, it's always been a question with the aliens. Is it completely robotic, or is there an organic component to it? And that's a thing that's always been prevalent in XCOM's games. It's just, you don't know. And that's what I love about this design. It's like, when you look at it, you think, that's a robot. But when you think about it more, it's like, this is XCOM. Could it be fully robotic? We don't know.
Or could there just be like a human brain underneath their headpiece there?
Yeah.
That's simply how, like the best, processor is a human brain. That they simply use for their own Advent soldiers.
Yeah, and for all we know, I mean, there could be a Advent volunteer program where basically, let's say a injured Advent trooper gets their limbs ripped off in a fight or something, and it's like maybe they'll use, well, I wouldn't say volunteer, maybe they'll just repurpose him and have him join the Advent mech trooper program or something. So underneath all that robotics could be a human, well, I would say human, a Advent torso and head controlling the body. Once again, I'd love to come back to this concept many times. It's pretty much a case in point with the floater, basically. The floater is a perfect example of a combination of organics and cybernetics, and we know the aliens are not above human testing, of course, and will go to any lengths to make the perfect enemy. So moving on from the mechs though, Advent does deploy several other foot soldier type of units, such as the Stun Lancer.
Now when you look at the Stun Lancer, Cory, what immediately grabs your attention?
I mean, it's obviously his the probe that he has. It just looks like a huge shock baton.
Yeah.
And to me, it's also pulling in the fact of his helmet design and just his general design. He just looks like that stereotypical comic book villain to me.
Oh, yeah, he does.
And he's just one of your, basically G.I. Joe Cobra villain. Basically.
Get some Cobra Kai up in here.
Yeah.
I look at it, it does give me that Cobra Kai feel as well, and he looks very menacing with his stun lance right there. The design of his armor it doesn't look heavily armored, but it gives him the feel of being very mobile, a very dangerous and fast unit. He also has his gun on his back right now, so that's kind of indicative of like he's a guy who's willing to run into the enemy fire just to hit the enemy. But he does have range capability, which does give him other options. So it's a very dangerous looking unit.
Probably best that you avoid close quarter combat with him.
Well, I'd say our rangers would disagree with that. But moving on from the Stun Lancer, of course, we come to the Advent Shield Bearer.
Now I know what you're thinking. It was my first thought as well. Where's the shield? Well, I mean, I would love to say that we still use riot shields in the future, and that may still be a thing. For all we know, it could be a holographic shield that pops up, kind of like the Mass Effect Omni shield from Mass Effect 3.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, you could argue the oversized shield pauldron on his left arm there could be the shield.
Yeah, judging by some of his old concept art, the one side was heavily shielded where the other side was not as much. It was just like actually just one whole side of him was shielded too, which I think includes his greaves as well.
Wow, a complete wall shield unit right there. That would be very interesting to come across in the fight.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, does he like maybe charge at you or something, or...
I feel like he's more of a slow-moving unit. They did mention him as a support type. He offers shielding. Once again, that's more enemy capabilities, which I'll cover in a future episode. But he feels more slow and supportive. He's going to stay at the back so not to be vulnerable, but at the same time, he looks very tanky. Like, he can take out a lot of damage. But, I mean, once again, most of us in the XCOM community will just argue nothing that a lot of explosives and snipers can't handle. But that's pretty much the Advent Shield Bearer. I mean, he looks really awesome looking. I mean, just looking at him is like it's a very intimidating mass of armor right there.
You know, he is probably your aggro character, more or less. He's the one to take the first hit.
That's true. And he could tank for it.
And since he is, instead of the black color, which is kind of a stealth color, he's a white color, which is probably a lot more eye-popping and more noticeable. So he might be the first target to notice, if anything else.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention color. What just came to my mind at that? Yeah, he doesn't have the general black the Advent tends to sport, but maybe he's doing white and red for the Geneva Convention, saying it's illegal to fire at a supporting personnel. Maybe, but I'm pretty sure the aliens don't give a damn about Geneva Conventions. But moving away a little bit from the Advent, this is a mini clip here that I managed to find. It was pretty interesting, and I thought I'd get your opinion on it, Cory, because it did give me a laugh when I saw it.
Okay.
Now, what do you think of this design of Advent propaganda?
You know, they look so... they're like made out of chrome. They got this like old 80s looking like laser eye up front. It honestly just looks like your combination of sci-fi cyberpunk 80s with RoboCop mixed into it. Like,
I was just about to say RoboCop.
This is the alliance of RoboCop here.
Yeah, you know, the flags in the background and the general coloring of it makes me think of like old propaganda used by like North Korea and Russia back in like the Cold War years.
So this is communistic.
Yeah,
RoboCop.
Communistic Advent RoboCops.
Yep.
That's gonna be a spin-off game. XCOM RoboCop Communism.
Oh boy.
You heard it here first.
It's not the aliens that are after you. It's the commies.
Yeah, it was always the commies. The aliens were the commies' pet project.
Oh man.
Alright, but moving away from the Advent propaganda, let's get into the alien designs.
Oh boy. Sectoids?
Yep, sectoids first off. What do you think of the new and improved sectoid?
It's significantly different from your first XCOM game. I mean, they were the short little stubby guys. They weren't that menacing, right?
Yeah, this isn't your grandpa's sectoid.
No. From what the lore is, from what I've read here, is that they've genetically modified them with human genetics, and now you've got these new form of sectoids, and they just look so much more creepier. And
yeah, the mouth especially.
The mouth is now exposed, and it's so utterly creepy. And if you look at the concept art too, that just gives you another.
The half-formed mouth on the concept art gives you shivers. Because when you think of a sectoid, you don't think of the mouth right off the bat. You look at the new sectoid, you see the mouth is like, oh, okay, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to see because there's like a raindrop kind of covering it, but he still does have the old arm-mounted plasma pistol that the sectoid still used in the first XCOM. But most people kind of look at it and see the sectoid basically using a Pip-Boy from Fallout. But it is indeed a plasma pistol, so that is a thing. And as we can see in the image, this is a base sectoid. This isn't like a sectoid commander. It's using offensive psi abilities right off the bat. So design-wise, it's tall, it's creepy, it's more human, but mostly creepy.
just creepy.
Yeah, honestly though, I do love the design of the sectoid. Doesn't make the sectoid seems as a frail scouting unit the aliens used to use. Now they're like, I need to kill that thing right away.
Yeah.
But moving away from...
Or, kill it before it repopulates.
Yeah, kill it with fire. Right, but like I said, moving on from the sectoid, we have the new, well, I wouldn't say new, but the Viper. Now, when you look at the Viper, Cory, what do you think of the Viper?
I'm surprised that they had a snake. I didn't really realize, but wow, it's basically just a it's like a full-grown cobra snake with tits, and looks like she's probably gonna unhinge her jaw and kill your resistance soldier right there.
Yep, they do have a habit of binding things. But
snakes tend to do that.
Yeah, it's basically a centaur anaconda cobra with breasts.
It almost seems like just a bad science experiment with genetics gone wrong than more of an alien.
Well, here's the thing that most people tend to forget. If you played the original XCOM games, you would know that the Finmen, the Viper, they are a part of the same species. They are a species of asexual reptilians. And because of that, there isn't really a gender role. I don't know how they want to explain it this time, whether it's like through evolution they now have two distinct gender roles, but they were originally asexual so they could reproduce on their own. And on the topics of Viper, a few of you, actually, I'm not going to say any names, some of you have sent me emails with attachments, and most of them are regarding the Viper. I'm pretty sure you're starting to get a picture of where this is leading. Let's just say you guys messaged me these emails, said you should include this, and I promptly said no, but thank you. They're basically... Rule 34 met XCOM, and the Viper was the target. Let's just leave it at that. You guys want to go see it, Google it, but Google it at your own risk. It's not safe for work. Some of them, anyway. Some of them are actually kind of cute, because they do the whole cutesy anime thing on the Viper. I'm pretty sure... I don't know if you've seen any of them, Cory.
No, but I know where you're getting at.
Yeah.
The whole fan base artwork. Yay!
I mean, I guess it's just because the Viper is so out there, and the XCOM community couldn't resist. But
hey, man, to each their own.
Yeah, but if that floats your boat, we'll go with it. But like it said, she looks fast, she looks agile, she looks deadly.
Very deadly, I would say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough that, most people are scared to say snakes as it is. Yeah. It's another thing when they're a giant anaconda cobra snake. That just freaks you out, man.
Let's make matters.
I would hate to be a resistance soldier fighting that.
Yeah.
It just does not look fun.
Well, let's make matters worse and put a Viper on a plane.
Oh gosh. Get Samuel L. Jackson, man.
Yeah, he'll get there with the golf club.
On a plane.
Alright, so moving away from the Viper, we have the Muton. What do you think of this big hulking mass of flesh and muscle?
It's kind of an interesting suit he's got on there.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me something of like the Crisis Cryo suit or something. It looks like...
Yeah, when you say it, now it does kind of look like it.
Like, I wonder if that suit has any real enhancements to it or not, because he looks like he's got some,
It looks almost form-fitting more than armor, if anything.
Yeah. It really does. I'm just surprised. I'm also looking at the weapon there, and they got like chainsaw bayonet thing at the thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you read my mind there.
Just like, yeah, is this like a kind of a Gears of War thing going on?
It pretty much is a Gears of War. He's gonna close in on you and hit you with it.
Well, I just knowing me, I love my violent video games. If I had to watch my own guy get torn up from a chainsaw, I would kind of laugh, because I think it's
you'd laugh in a bittersweet way seeing this mutant kill your troops.
Well,
but, yeah.
Back to it. He looks pretty menacing, and
yeah, the mutants definitely look a lot more deadly this time. I mean, their heads are much bigger, probably more increased intellect. They're not your ordinary frontline cannon fodder now. But, like, he's got some significant improvements to him. He made all sorts of gains in those 20 years. Most of it is human DNA, though.
That's what it was like reading right here. More access with the human DNA.
Yep. Well, that's our mutant, but you can't really have mutants without the mutant berserker.
Oh, hey, look at another Gears of War reference.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, I mean, she is, well, when I said the mutant was a hulking mass of flesh and muscle, the berserker is even more so. She is basically on roids and all sorts of chemical cocktails that induces this creature.
She just looks like a slab of meat, just kind of like just a bunch of slab meat thrown together, but just really toned up and just muscular.
Yeah, and I really like the design of, like, you know, the injection ports that they have her like hooked up to.
Yeah, it's kind of like something right out of the Matrix almost, but it's interesting, and it looks like she has kind of like these gauntlets, or like how do I want to say it, like fists, like her own brass knuckles almost.
Yeah, they basically do look like brass knuckles. I mean, it's kind of hard to see in this image, but it looks like a metal tip on the fingers.
Yeah, they got like metal tips on these on the knuckles themselves, and it makes me wonder if that like discharges anything.
Well, I mean, in the original XCOM, the mutant berserker had like a whole arm guard thing, but it had spikes on the end of it. Now it seems a little less prominent on that, but I believe that's owed to the whole genetic manipulation of the 20 years that has passed.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to play the audio of the berserker roar here, because I read up on the audio that went into creating the berserker cry, and it's hilarious. It's like, I can't remember exactly what the details were, but it was like 6 guys in a room screaming at something, a tornado, a pig squeal, and a lot of other stuff. The combination of things they used in their audio to create the berserker roar, the audio design of it is hilarious, because you hear it the first time, you think that's very menacing. Every time I hear it now, it's like I think of that description of what they used to create the berserker roar. Oh, but the final verdict on this is a giant slab of meat that's gonna come at you at like 60 miles per hour truck velocity, basically,
and just pummel you to death.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I really hope our troopers will be able to handle it, but maybe we can use the old volleyball tactic that we used to do on Berserker. Have one person shoot it, it runs one way. Have the other person shoot it, it runs the other way. Maybe you have a close combat specialist assault there sitting in between with a shotgun, so every time it runs by him, it takes an automatic shot.
Sounds like a good tactic.
Oh yeah, I love the volleyball tactic. Alright, now moving on to everybody's favorite alien, the chrysalid. What can I say about the chrysalid that the community doesn't already hate/like? Well, I mean, it's more purple, definitely. It's got more spikes, more deadly. I feel like the mouthpiece is even bigger. It's terrifying and awesome at the same time. I can't really say much more than that. Cory, what do you think of the new chrysalid compared to the original chrysalid?
I haven't actually seen the original chrysalid, but just looking at this thing...
think this smaller and less spikes, and that's pretty much the last chrysalid.
Oh, okay. Oh, this chrysalid had glowing eyes, though.
Yeah, I mean, they were white.
Were they white? Okay. I might be looking at a different one, but... Just going off by this, It's this one looks almost like it's an aquatic creature. Like it's got some kind of combination with like crabs almost to me.
Oh yeah,
Because
looking at its carapace.
It looks very the shell. It looks like a shell kind of design.
Yeah, it looks like a crab, like the underbelly of a crab.
Crab, yes.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I mean, maybe they could. Actually, I hate to bring this up because it's gonna do PTSD on somebody in the XCOM community, but Site Recon. The Newfoundland mission where there was an infested whale that constantly spawned chrysalids on us. They did mention the chrysalids had. What kind of effect would they have on the aquamarine life of the planet if the chrysalids were to evolve unchecked? Or spread unchecked, I should say.
Okay, so they are in some way an aquatic creature from some other world.
I wouldn't say aquatic, but I would say they are more insectoid, of course, but they do integrate with other species in terms of its reproduction, like when it cocoons a human, for example, it's going to create a zombie. That zombie, in a couple of minutes, will become a newly formed chrysalid, and the reproduction continues onwards until it's exponential. In the Newfoundland mission, it was the whale which they infected. So they infected whale and sharks, and they produced chrysalids too. Not zombies, but they infected and became chrysalids. So it does bring into the question, what kind of scale are we talking about if the chrysalids were to just be mindless and free? Well, I mean, they already are mindless, I should say. But yeah, that is the chrysalid in a nutshell. Final verdict on its design. What do you think, Cory?
Like I said, to me it represents almost like a crab with its legs, and compared to the first XCOM, it seems more, how do I describe it? It seems more like a kind of a bug design to me than like kind of this monster. It looks like a bug.
More so than the first chrysalid?
More so than the first, yes.
I suppose I can see where you're going.
It's more of not bug. I should say insect kind of form.
Yeah.
An aquatic insect to me. That's what I think of right off the top.
Yeah, I feel like that description really hits home base with the chrysalid. Well, moving on to one of the other new enemies. Here we have the Archon. Now, you're looking at the Archon, you're probably wondering where's its lower half. Well, basically, the Archons are the new floaters. The aliens decided in their infinite wisdom, looking at the new Archon here, the aliens basically said, we don't like floaters because they look terrible. They are an abomination of organic and mechanical components. And it's like, we now have the humans under our yoke, under our palm. And it's like, we want to show them that humans and aliens can coexist, and our technology can help them, make them look regal and ascend into greatness. And the final product is the Archon, a human torso now supported with alien mechanical systems and propulsion. What do you think of the Archon, Cory, compared to something like the floater, which was basically just a mutilated mass of mutons?
Well, trying to get an idea here. What's interesting about these guys right here, they're very elegantly designed. They use this almost this gold pattern. Like it kind of makes you think of just something that's rich and refined.
Yeah, very regal, isn't it?
Regal, yeah. And kind of like you were saying, like an ascension to the human beings moving on. And it's interesting the way they designed this one, because it's just really refined, and it doesn't look scary or menacing. It's like,
yeah, like you could have this floating downtown in the new cities and the humans wouldn't bat an eye because, hey, that's gonna be me one day. I like that look.
Basically.
I mean, here's a question. Here's a question to the viewers. Would you want to become a Archon? Equipped with jetpacks and on-demand airstrike, apparently? I'll leave that up to you guys in the comment section. But as you were saying, Cory, what were you saying?
That's really about it. I mean, compared to your floaters, which were these big bulky guys, and
yeah,
they kind of have a creepy look to them because it's definitely more of a blend between flesh to metal. Where this one, you don't really see the flesh. You don't have like this gory look to him. He looks really elegant.
Yeah, he looks more at home.
Yeah.
Compared to the floaters and the heavy floaters. Although, with the heavy floaters, at least they were armor plated, so you can see much.
Yeah.
And, of course, we gotta talk about this guy. We have the Faceless. There's not much to talk about him design-wise. This is his true form. Basically, the concept of the Faceless is he can take the form of anything he decides to take. Or, well, I should say it. I don't know if it has a gender. But when you look at the Faceless, what do you think, Cory?
Makes me wonder how they designed this character. It kind of looks almost as if like they were all chilling at the office, and then someone just had to bring in their ice cream, and then it just kind of just spilt and just melted. And this was the byproduct of the Faceless.
It probably dropped on a Muton action figure.
Yeah.
And there's like, that looks brilliant.
Brilliant. There it is.
I mean, I've seen some of the development process of the minds behind some of the enemies, like Jake Sullivan and his design of the new Chrysalid, and it's like, yeah, there's some pretty warped minds at work in the design department here. But when I look at it, I mean, he looks really gooey, and the goo, in my mind, makes him look very malleable. I can never pronounce that word right, but it does give him the sense as he can become anything. And when he comes out and there's like this tall, imposing, gooey, clawed, almost faceless creature, which is kind of misleading because he does kind of have a face.
Yeah, it's a very creepy face though.
Yeah, especially I have a GIF that will be used in a future episode, but there's a zoom in on its face and it's actually really creepy.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine it because his face looks like that of like a dog that's got the very flappy sides.
Oh yeah,
just drooping down, but it's just got no nose.
Yeah, the kind of dogs that you normally see in pictures where it's like its head is laying on the ground, it's the side of its face is just drooping to the side.
Drooping side, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry if anybody owns that kind of dog. I actually don't know what kind of dog that is, but sorry if you have that dog. But I mean, if you have that kind of dog and now you're seeing images of the faceless on the dog, well, I'm sorry. All right, and moving on, we have a mech for the aliens. Now, I'm not sure if they still have mechtoids or not, because I mean, the mechtoid was pretty much just, you know, standard mech size, like the Advent mech, these human XCOM mechs. They were pretty standard size, about the same, and the cockpit was just basically used to house the small sectoid form. Not sure if they'll still have that anymore with XCOM 2, what with the new improvements they've done on the sectoid. But now we have the Andromeda, or Andromedon, whichever they went with. I can't remember which. Actually.
It looks like Andromedon. I can't even pronounce it.
Yeah, it's the Andromedon. Yeah. But, you know, what do you think when you look at the Andromedon mech here?
Well, since I've been playing Fallout 4 a lot, it definitely looks just like a big old thing of power armor, just a big power suit.
Mm-hmm. See, when I look at the Andromedon, what comes to my mind is Big Daddy from BioShock.
You know, yeah, that's a good one. It does look like a Big Daddy.
Yeah, I mean, he's just missing the drill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, looking at him, I mean, it's a hulking mass of metal piloted by a alien that apparently can't withstand or doesn't like the Earth atmosphere. So
yeah, it could be something like, it could be like a grunt from Halo series.
Yeah, it could be like they wear the methane canisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, it's like this design is really, really neat to me. I mean, I love the BioShock game, so the Big Daddy look on it looks awesome. And, you know, the shadow of the silhouette of the alien piloting it, like, really lends, like, not fascination, but an imagination. Like, if you look at it from this angle, it looks like a very angular head, and those two bumps at the very middle kind of look like eyes. but it could be very well be the side profile of the actual face. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, it's too hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it away, it kind of does look like a sectoid, but at the same time, it can't be a sectoid because sectoids can
with the face, or at least where it's mouth region, the mouth to nose region looks almost as one. Kind of what I'm telling you while I'm zooming this in as close as I can get, but it kind of just looks like its face and mouth are just molded into one. Just
yeah,
some
probably
weird
could
form.
be. I mean, I wonder if we'll get a chance to see one. But knowing Firaxis, they'll probably tease us more with it. And now we have a new enemy that was just recently revealed. We have the Gatekeeper. I honestly don't know that much about it, except that it does give me flashbacks from a very older game. But when I look at it, it makes me think of like the Oculus enemy from Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Where you face it near the end of the game. What do you think when you look at the Gatekeeper, Cory?
It reminds me of an enemy off of Destiny that I can't recall the name, but they have these eye creatures, and it's interesting because it makes me wonder if like this is some kind of surveillant creature for the Avant, because you can see the Avant soldier in the back there.
Yeah, I mean, it does have flying capabilities, so it could have a surveillance aspect to it. But I did see an image following this one, because there's actually a few images for it, but it's opened up and there seems to be like some sort of energy attack. I can't really tell.
An eye or something?
Yeah, and judging by the tone with its description, I believe it's way more than just like a giant flying battle scanner
flying.
from.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was trying to reference the battle scanner from the first XCOM. It's like the little attachment you throw to see ahead of you.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, it kind of makes me think of a Pokeball without the red. Moving away from enemy designs now, let's move on to base designs, actually. What do you think of the new Avenger base, your mobile HQ, Cory? What do you think of the new design?
Well,
I should mention that this is a old UFO transport that was shot down in the invasion that is now repurposed.
It looks really cool. It's apparently this is all a ship that's just used specifically on Earth.
Well, no, what do you mean used on Earth?
Because you said it was an alien destroyer ship?
No, it was a transport ship. Like
a transport ship. Okay.
Yeah, like an alien barge.
Okay. Well, it's really interesting. It looks really cool, and trying to compare it to like XCOM 1, where you were just the base underground.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Go ahead.
I really don't know how to describe this one.
Well, in my opinion, like I really like. Of course, you kept the ant farm, aspect of a base. Looking at it, there's a lot less facilities, obviously, because we're on a barge and not underground. So, I mean, a lot less room to work at. Looking at it, it kind of reminds me of this war of mine.
Yeah.
Like you see your building from the side in the ant farm. I keep mixing those up. Ant farm style. I mean, you see your research division off to your far left. Your engineering department at the bottom right. You got your armory and your hangar at the top right. You got your mission control in the center, and the barracks over there. And it looks great. And also the fact the landing gear. This is something I really thought was cool. You see the background, the little bit of the background at the bottom. You see it's like all deserty.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at that, because it's a mobile HQ, you're flying around the world with it. The background actually changes when you land. I mean, like, look at this one. The design on this is like, it looks breathtaking.
Yeah.
Like, you see some old satellite dish over there. The wilderness. It's great.
It looks really good.
Mm-hmm. It kind of makes me think of like, it really does kind of like depict well, I wouldn't say apocalyptic, but a world that ended, but continued.
This is a world ravaged by war,
pretty much
by aliens, and it seems pretty absent of, of civilization.
Stepping back into a little more about the UI design as we explore the base a little further in detail, here we have the research UI. And the thing I like about this research UI is, like the character creation, there's a little depth of field. It's not as opaque. You can clearly see your resources at hand, like you can see your research options, obviously, and it's very similar to original XCOM, where Dr. Violet was always typing away on her little tablet. Now we have Dr. Tigan, which is, I mean, he's alright, but I prefer Valen personally. I mean, anybody who's watched my series can know about all the little bits of me flirting with Dr. Valen. If you guys haven't watched the original XCOM Enemy Within series I definitely recommend it. It's quite a long series though. But like I said, with the UI, I can clearly see all the resources, all the staff that I have. The power, the engineering scientists, alloys, Illyrium, supplies, and intel. All of that I can clearly see right off the bat. I can determine what I have. With the original XCOM, it was kind of similar along the same lines, but I kind of had to look at it closely and take a moment to figure out what I had. This one, I know what I have right off the bat. And the same goes for the research progress bar down there. Back in the original XCOM, it was tiny blocks at the very bottom of the screen, and I kind of had to squint to look at it just to see the progress. But with this, I can look at it and say, that's halfway done on the research, we're almost there, and then we can move on to the next research. What do you think of the UI design for the research division, Cory?
It looks good, it looks solid. Everything is really easy to read. Like most of the stuff what you've mentioned already, and I can only judge by what I've seen from the other photos. And this is just a clean design, using this more sleek UI is just a better way of going about it, because the previous one with all the cyan colors, as much it was cool, I think it
was very detracting.
It was very detracting.
Yeah, I feel that was pretty much like the UI kind of pitfall for the original XCOM. So I'm very, very pleased with the new UI designs in general. I know we are going a little long on the video, but this is going to be a pretty long one because the design aspect, there's a lot to it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the facilities now, not just in design-wise, but also in their uses. So here we have the Advanced Warfare Center, AWC, if you will. With this is pretty much, you look at it, you see medical implements, you see where our soldiers are, taking it easy after a rough mission. You can use your staff members, if you have them on hand, to boost the performance of each facility. Each one has their own little thing. The AWC is also responsible for retraining your soldiers' abilities. And I think it was also mentioned that there was a possibility of you able to get a completely different skill and ability from another class for a specific class. Like, for example, you could have something ability that runs from the Ranger on a Specialist. I'm not quite sure on that because, like I said, I did hear it in passing on a live stream, but I'm not sure if that's how it is going to be implemented or if it's just a respec system. But when you look at that and knowing what I've just discussed, Cory, what do you think of the AWC as it is? And here we just see an engineer being assigned to the facility.
Okay, yeah. It looks clean. It's I'm really not too sure what else I can mention of it, but judging from it and the way they designed it, it looks like a medical bay to me. Right off the bat. That's what I can see, because they have the little computer screens with diagnostics of the patient itself or their soldiers, and
the IV bags and all of that.
Yep, they got the IV bags going on too.
I especially like that, that little pod back there that's probably going to be used for the respec system, for the retraining.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you can see here, we have an engineer that was assigned to the AWC, and the bonus is healing rate plus 100% for the soldiers. So that's very nice. Moving on, we have our engineering bay, of course. What do you think of the engineering bay in regards to like Lily Shen, who is described as a very energetic person, always hopping from one project to the next?
So she's a youngling. She kind of makes me think of like the girl from Mirror's Edge Faith almost. So
oh yeah,
maybe that kind of spunk energy is in her. And someone who's good at tinkering. That's my kind of favorite kind of girl.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of like really lends itself, because if you look in the background to the right over there, you see her like working on a gremlin over there.
Yeah.
But I mean, similar to the UI design, as we said so far, everything is very clear. We see everything that we need to know right away. Although I would like to say the build item menu looks so much better already than the original build item menu, because it was all stacked together. Therefore, I was always clicking on the wrong thing, and like I would have to like triple click on something else to get it to switch to another item. Here we have a little bit more of a division between items, so I think that will help me out. It does look like a pretty busy workshop with a very energetic personality running that workshop.
Favorite place for a tinker person.
Yeah, and speaking of tinkering, this is actually the Proving Grounds facility. It's basically the foundry facility from XCOM, but basically you go here and you work on various engineering projects to improve your stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot more projects that will be available, but of the two we see here are experimental ammo and experimental grenade. And it's pretty much you throw a core and supplies in and see what you get out of the fun bag. What do you think of that mechanic, actually?
The mechanic of throwing it in and see what I get?
Yeah, I mean, like, you could easily come out with, like, a poison rounds or fire rounds or something of the sort.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
Something that I can use against the enemies, and ultimately, I always like a little surprise.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it does break a little bit of the monotony. Like, back in XCOM, you kind of always had a set strategy. It's like, build this, let's get a satellite nexus, get our satellites taken care of, build this armor, build this weapon, we're good. With the randomness factor to it, I feel like it does add a lot more replay value to the game.
Yes, I can agree to that.
Yep. And moving on to the next facility right now, we have the GTS, the Guerrilla Tactics School. This is where all of our soldiers are going to be training. And I gotta say, I love the aesthetics of this room. What do you think about it, Cory?
It's just the first thing you're gonna notice is like how they have the punching bag.
Yeah, the sectoid punching bags.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it was like in the living quarters of the original XCOM base, but there's like a pool table, and you could see off to the side there's some arcade machines where you shoot sectoids and mutons. Like there was like on the side of the arcade machine. So I really,
that's lovely. So they had time for programmers to come aboard and build video games for them.
Yeah. I mean, we had the world's resources at our disposal. I also love the the water fountain over there. Like have some soldiers chill out after a workout on the treadmill or lifting some weights. And of course your little like Rainbow Six Siege kind of like plan out where you're gonna attack, split off here, etc. on the whiteboard over there.
Yep.
But aside from the aesthetics and design of this facility, I really like the GTS because it kind of doubles up as a training facility as well as the officer training school from the original XCOM. Here we have the training menu. So what this basically does is every time you have a soldier available, you can possibly, well, I shouldn't say possibly, you can dictate what class they are going to get. It'll take some time to obviously do that, but the good thing about it is they still have that original promotion system. Like you finish a mission with a bunch of rookies, they get promotions, they come back, they get a random class, and sometimes you get a person who's like, I wanted that person to be a sniper because I think that person is more of a sniper character, but now he's a grenadier. It's like, with this though, at least you can mitigate it a little bit. Like, if you have a soldier that's not going out on the mission, let's put him in for training. Let's make him a ranger because he looks like a, you know, head rush, go in and guns blazing kind of guy. What do you think of that mechanic, Cory? Allowing us that little bit of control on our soldier selection.
I think it's nice. That way you can select whatever soldier class he can be, because you didn't have that option in the first XCOM game, yes?
Yeah, we didn't have it at all. Totally RNG.
Yeah, so if it was just randomly selected, but now you get the chance to choose what kind of class you want to be, it may work out to your benefit depending on what your tactics are in the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not sure how that's gonna work hand in hand with the AWC, like if we get a full respec system, like can you retrain a different class? I very much doubt that, but you never know. And along on the same lines with the GTS here, we have the tactics section, which is basically just, you know, the upgrades from the officer training school. So you can see some old classics like squad size 1 and squad size 2 increased. Those are obviously big staples for the upgrades. You know, you got your class-specific upgrades, like the Grenadiers got biggest booms. I'm pretty sure we can figure out what that means. And, you know, other stuff like Hunter's Instinct, Dead Shot, Cool Under Pressure. There's stuff like Stay With Me. That should be pretty self-explanatory. And old favorites like Wet Work, which was like more experience for kills and missions. But, you know, the Vulture in this case, like enemy drops an additional item with every time the loot drop. That does signify that there is a loot system, and that's how you kind of loot the enemy of, you know, weapon attachments and whatnot. And it's very neat on that. So I really like that we still have a officer training school aspect of it to improve our troops. What do you think of some of the newer ones, such as like the Vulture, Cory?
I think it's nice, and I don't know if you had the ability to really loot enemies before in the XCOM, but at least it gives you something to look forward to now.
Well, I mean, the closest thing you had to loot was like gathering the corpses and weapon fragments and resources after the end of the mission, or if you managed to capture a alien with a arc thrower, then you get their weapon as a reward too. But you didn't actually loot per se in the mission aside from collecting meld. But even then, you could still gain the meld if you finish the mission soon enough without even accessing them.
Well, whether that being, you know, having some new tactics just broadens the game some more from the original, and that's what's necessary, and I'm sure that's what people look forward to.
Yeah, and here's the thing I should mention though: the enemies dropped an additional item thing. Yeah, those loot options are timed. I think it's like you have 3 turns to get onto that loot square and loot the item before it just disappears and self-destructs. So yeah, it's like it does offers like, do I want to get that loot or do I want to play it safe and not get killed by the enemies that's still over there? Aside from that though, let's move on to, you know, more aesthetic parts of the base, because I don't have that. I don't think I have any other facilities one specifically, but here we have the living quarters for the soldiers. What do you think of the living quarters?
Looks like a relaxing, chilled back place, playing a game of cards at the table, having a nice round after a successful mission, or having a drink because shit went wrong.
Well, it's funny you should say shit went wrong and having a drink, because that's actually the next destination. Our bar and our memorial.
Okay, well then there you go. That's pretty explanatory right there.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. If you look at the right side, I love the aesthetics of this place. If you look closely, there is a picture of Dr. Shen, Dr. Valen, and Bradford. There's like little model ships of the Interceptors and the Sky Ranger from the original game, and a sectoid, either a skull or just like a stuffed piece. And I really like the aesthetics of that, you know, like having it out in a trophy case. I should mention though, speaking of Interceptors, I believe there is no Interceptor mechanics. I believe there is no like air battles for us. in terms of interceptors anyway, because we are on a mobile ship. We're not really equipped for sending out a bunch of fighters to deal with enemy UFOs like in the first game. But what do you think of the bar, like compared to the bar from the first game? We had like big widescreen TVs, a huge bar on the side with a bunch of selection of drinks and whatnot.
Well, it looks more like you're either there to drink just strictly, because the only screen you see there is like what looks like almost kind of like a digital frame to me.
Like a viewport?
Yeah, viewport.
Yeah, it does kind of look like that. When I look at it though, it kind of reminds me of like you know, like those restaurants at a mall or something of the sort. You kind of just walk in and it's like this small little space and you just take a seat.
Yeah.
That's what I think. The memorial, obviously a lot different. The memorial in the first game was just a wall with a little UI pop-up where you just see the names of your fallen soldiers and whatnot. Like you see their stats, how many kills they've got, how many missions they've been on, what were they killed by, and when were they killed, etc. This one, they have plaques, and by plaques, they also include the character image of that soldier.
Aww.
That really adds a really nice touch. Like, now it's not just a name up there. You are looking at the face of your dead soldier. How do you feel about that?
What could I have done differently to have her still be alive?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have chosen this soldier to run out in the middle of the open with a bunch of enemies on Overwatch. And you know, there's a button right there, change the epitaph. You can write the epitaph of your dead soldiers.
Oh man, they give you all the stuff. That's cool.
I know, they're gonna make it feel, you'd like, if you're gonna lose a soldier, we're gonna make you feel bad about it. You remember all that time you spent customizing them? Think of that. Think about that when you're writing their epitaph / writing their condolence letter, as I would usually say back in the XCOM series. Oh, but I really like that. What do you, in the terms of like, you know, the customization and, you know, giving the character a personality, what do you think of that, Cory?
It's fantastic, and especially for someone like you, Lewis, like what we brought up earlier. It's the whole idea of adding these customizations basically to personify the player you're going to be playing with.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to really make your game experience a better one, because it's just more lively to you than some kind of random soldier that you don't know. Because then it just adds that personality that gives you a bond and connection, and not just some random person that you don't give two shits about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like most games like RTS, like, you know, like something along the lines of Age of Empires or something. You're not just making a mass production army and you just throw them mindlessly at the enemy and they die by the hundreds. And this one is like, this is someone you've, you know, ranked up for a while now. They've been on missions. You've been on the edge of your seat whenever they were about to die, and now they're finally dead and you're writing their epitaph. It's just like, it really hits home there.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. And like Cory said, I did make a habit of, well, I mean, I did it pretty much for every soldier that I used in the XCOM Enemy Within series. Everybody was either a friend I knew that was watching the series or a subscriber who wanted to be a part of the series. And I intend to do the same for XCOM 2. Moving away from the base a little bit, just general look of the new cities of the aliens. What do you think about them?
It looks comforting. It looks like a human city civilization to me.
Yeah.
Like any normal city. So it's kind of like, it's almost welcoming to any citizens who've been abandoned by the whole war and raid of terror from what has happened. It's some place that maybe is for them to be called home again because they have nowhere else to go.
Exactly. And as the book described it, they made it, the aliens and Advent made the new cities as beacons of advancement and hope and tranquility. And their claim is, you know, when the dust settled after the war, after certain cities were bombed to destruction, which is a lie, as said in the book. Some cities were carefully deconstructed of every little bit and then rebuilt from the ground up to the new cities. So right there, we already know the aliens lied about some things. And also the fact that the point behind it was the aliens blamed these old cities as the reasons for all of humanity's wars. All this national pride is the reason why you fought each other for so long. And by creating their new cities, all of the new cities are very similar in design, so that if a person living in one city goes to another city, they can immediately know where they are and find their way around the city. It's very uniform. But as we all know, uniformity also cuts down on
individualism.
Yeah, individualism. But that's pretty much it on that. And let's look at the new city here and compare it to, some of the other stuff that's left on Earth that humans are still living in, but not under direct alien supervision, as it were. So here we have like a little city center here with the alien new city right here. It looks very, was it cyberpunk is the term?
Yeah, it looks very sci-fi-ish. It looks very, it's like kind of just, it's new. It's
abstract building art, basically.
Abstract building art.
Yeah, and let's take this and compare it to, some towns that people are still living in. Like this little diner here with a gas station. People are still living here, right? Looks pretty run down compared to, when it would probably be still back in the day with humans, with the old hustle and bustle here. But now we also see that there is an alien presence in these small towns. Like if you look in the background, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see like some kind of, it looks like a light post, but it's got the red lights on it.
Yeah, it's a
teleprompter sort of thing.
It's a scanner. I know that. It's a scanner used to detect enemies, basically. But it's basically an advent checkpoint back there. Yeah, so we're just going to scroll through the other images quickly here, because I have talked about this a little bit in the last episode. And, look at this image. Basically, anybody who's not living in the new cities are living in these kinds of communities, like shanty towns.
Yeah.
How would you compare it to the aliens' new cities, Cory?
It's basically either you're living in nice modern cities with the aliens, or you're basically living in a world of Fallout, probably.
Yeah.
Where that building is probably occupying a whole community almost, so they can strive and work together.
Yep, and like I said, it's also the areas where the resistance work now. Is like, this should give you an idea of some of the bad environments that we now are forced to live in under the aliens regime. And of course, I mean, it really shows that, in the 20 years since humans lost the wars against the alien invasion, nature has really taken, these communities back. Like, look at the amount of overgrowth.
Vegetation and growth going on that building and the car.
I mean, it's like, when you think about it, it's like that 20 years, that doesn't seem long. You look at this image though, it's like, wow, they really took it back fast here.
Yeah, it does.
Moving away from the environmental design, I want to talk about a little bit about the combat UI design. I know we're running a little long here, but it is a pretty long episode. I may cut this into parts, I'm not sure. But looking at the UI design of the combat design here, the enemy health bar, before it was kind of just tiered, like just a bunch of blips tiered, and like I don't know what shape it is, but it was like an angular shape. It kind of took up a lot of space. Now it's just a clear line with rectangle dividers, so you know how much you're looking at. You can see the status of the enemies, like they're on a patrol route right now. You can see where the enemies are able to see their line of sights as represented by the red box. And, the movement boundaries are a lot more crisp and clear and more squared compared to XCOM, which I always tend to misclick on because things were so curvy. What do you think about the design in general of, the combat UI here?
Well, just trying to judge it from the original XCOM. I like how you have this certain amount of bars, so you can see how many spaces to move. And then you were talking about the bars, their health bars.
Yeah.
It's pretty simplified. It's easy. I'm guessing like it just that the amount of health they have is 2, 3, 4, like 4. Like he's got 4 bars, so it's like the 4 bars of health. So it's nothing too complicated.
Yeah.
It looks simplified. It looks easy. That's what I should say.
Yeah, it gives you all the info you need right off the bat, and you can see it right away. And I really like that, especially in a sense that we're in a hit and run mission. We gotta move fast, so you want to be able to see all this thing at a glance.
The only thing I'm wondering, and what's interesting, because you see like all this effect going around, like this like wave.
The blue lines.
Blue lines, yes. And then there's that icon at the top, which looks like some kind of stealth person, almost like an Assassin's Creed character. Like, are you playing like a stealth portion?
Well, that's actually one of the mechanics that I will be covering in the combat mechanics episode. This is, for all intents and purposes, known as concealment. When you drop in on a mission, you will be in concealment, because back in the original XCOM, we kind of just dropped in. The aliens knew we were there, so we couldn't actually, hide and set up. So we would just, advance until we find the alien pack. They'd scamper off, take cover, and then we engage them, and that was pretty much it. Now it's reversed. We are basically in the aliens' position from the original XCOM. They have to stumble upon us, or we engage them when we see them when we're ready. You see what I mean there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because of concealment, basically, if we were to move anybody in the red squares right there...
That probably means you've been found, because that's an eyeball with an exclamation point. That's their line of sight, most likely.
But actually, it's kind of along the lines of this. Like, if you're standing in that red square, when you end your turn, on the immediate next alien turn, they will spot you and break concealment of your soldiers. So if you're still out of that red range, then you're good. But, like I said, the enemies can patrol, so they can move their line of sight. And not just the enemies, civilians will also have the red effect of line of sight here.
Yeah, like I said, civilians. As you can see off to the right, you see a group of civilians over there. I mean, they're not necessarily hostile, but they for all intents and purposes, think XCOM are the bad guys. So they will, break your concealment if you, engage them or get spotted by them. And a little bit of the map design talk here. All of these maps are procedurally generated. So there will be some aspects that are the same, but it'll be different procedurally generated. So you're not always getting the same map. Like, for example, in the old XCOM map, how many times have you played on the Fountains map? Or how many times you guys have found yourself on the Highway map? Pretty often. There's only this amount of times you can go throughout a long playthrough of XCOM Enemy Within before getting bored of the maps. Like, you've been fighting on this map with a bar and a pool, this pub, basically. You fought on this map like 10 times, like, scattered around the world, apparently. They've all built it like this. But I really do like that. And what do you think of the idea of, procedurally generated maps?
It just helps to make the game more interesting, and it helps to return to the game with, like when you do a second playthrough, it makes it more enjoyable, so it's not all repetitive and the same. Because if you have that same aspect like you were mentioning, it almost becomes as if it feels like you're just grinding, and then if you get that grinding aspect, and some people don't mind it, but
that's when the game starts to get,
that's when it starts to get, and then that's just kind of bland, and that's not always fun, because then you know exactly what the tactic is, and you're not really benefiting anything from the game itself.
Yeah, and like I said, the UI is a lot more, it's smaller, but at the same time, everything is more focused on the options. Like, all your actions for your character is right down there in the middle. All your actions up there for the rest of your team is up in the right-hand corner. Everything is, you can see everything at a glance and not have to think about it too much.
Yes.
And, I wanted to throw this in because there is a change in the design. So this, as we all know, was the original Sky Ranger from XCOM. And, you gotta love the Sky Ranger. Big Sky up there waiting to pick you up and bring you home. Now compare that, Cory, to the new Sky Ranger. What do you think?
That thing looks slick in the front.
Oh yeah. It's basically the Sky Ranger, but much smaller. And I see it used repelling a lot more rather than landing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I believe the new pilot's name is Firebrand, so kind of speculation on maybe Big Sky never made it, which is sad. Yeah, but we have a new pilot. I believe her name is Firebrand or something along those lines. It was mentioned several times in some of the videos I've seen in the trailers. And you can call in evacuation if need be. So, like, you got an injured soldier, call in an evac, put him on the... carry him to the Sky Ranger and get him out of there and continue on with the mission with who you have left. But, I really do like the new Sky Ranger design. It's very fitting for XCOM as it is now. You gotta go fast. It's a very smaller, unnoticeable ship compared to the original Sky Ranger.
Well, from perspective here, I'm just trying to look at between the two. It's hard to tell the difference in size from these two photos, but since it's smaller, I guess that maybe it makes it more agile because it's got this. It's more noticeable as a vertical takeoff craft now from the original Sky Ranger, which I can see it has it has the vertical takeoff, but this one's just more noticed, and it doesn't have the wings like it does in the original Sky Ranger.
Yeah, it has more of a Osprey, the Osprey aircraft itself. I believe that was more of a mechanical design choice given the nature of their missions. They needed to get in and out, and they didn't have the resources for wings.
Yeah.
I mean, those pieces of metals that are used in the wings of the Sky Ranger could be doing something else in research or engineering right now. That's probably what their thought process was. And moving a little bit onto the Mission Control Center here. This is the new improved Hologlobe and Geoscape. It's a lot smaller, but looks much nicer, obviously. When you look at this, it makes me think of like a pretty good tactical command center. You go up to it and you see what you need to see. What do you think of that?
It's nice, and it's like, I'm guessing it's all 3D rotated too, and
probably 3D rotated.
I like how the digital effects they added to it. They did, and that includes like the lit and glare effects. Not everyone's a big fan of it, but I am. It makes it really pop out. And
I like the little bit of the glare effect that it has on the screen.
Yeah.
But let's take this and compare it to the old Hologlobe. So this was the Geoscape and Hologlobe for the original XCOM. The UI is really cluttered compared to, let me go back to it. Compared to this, I'm assuming the UI will be more around the edges, whereas this one is like all in the center, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty compact. So the Hologlobe Geoscape was all 360. You can rotate it around and whatnot and play around with it, right? This is the new Geoscape for XCOM 2. It's all flat. Once you access that Hologlobe, this is what you see. This is your Geoscape. You're not on the 360 view anymore. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Civ, Civilization, how you play it from a map view. What do you think of that design change in terms of the Geoscape?
It's probably just going to make things a lot more simplified, and it keeps you more intact of what your surrounding is, because this game's all basically on stealth now. You're not having to go out and really...
Yeah, you don't have the far-reaching influence that we once had.
Yeah, you don't have the far-reaching influence. So this kind of brings you closer to what's important to you right now. It's more about the here and now, and the relatively close countries is what's going to be important than what's around the globe right now to you, because you just don't have the resources or power to really do so right now. Mm-hmm. And then that probably alone just helps to just add less clutter to the UI of the map.
Yeah, And that's kind of what you said is pretty true. Is like, you know, we focus on the areas that are around us. We can't focus on, you know, what's over in the United States right now. But as you can see, like, the only regions we can access from this region that's shown here in blue is the European region and the other side of Africa over there. And it's really nice how they did that. It also helps in, like, you know, you're not kind of overwhelmed by so much at the time, but I'm pretty sure that ramps up more when you gain more influence across the continent. And I believe that's actually all we have for now in the XCOM Overwatch episode. We've covered all the topics we wanted to cover here, and, you know, it's been a very long one. I'm feeling this is way over an hour and a half or so now. I haven't been keeping track of the time. But Cory, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of XCOM 2 Overwatch and, you know, the design aspects of it. As some of you may know, Cory is responsible for most of my intros and outros and a lot of the channel art and the profile image. You know, very creative guy, so that's why I wanted to bring Cory in on this, because he's got a lot more creative insight than I could ever have. So Cory, once again, thank you so much for agreeing and joining me in on this.
Of course, Lewis. I'm glad to be here.
Yep. And, you know, before I end off the video, of course, you know, I wanted to thank you guys so much for joining in on this. And if you're still watching, wow, you are a trooper. And, you know, speaking of being a trooper, I should always do my little pitch. If you want to be a part of the XCOM 2 squads, let me know in the comments section. I'll see what I can do. And I'll try not to get you killed. But there may be times where I may need someone to be a decoy and running out there to deal with an Overwatch that I can't handle. But like I said, I'll try not to get you killed. But, you know, join XCOM today. Join the Resistance. Or are you going to just let the aliens take over your world? I'll leave that question up to you guys. Anyway, that's it for episode 2 of XCOM 2 Overwatch. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. We hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
Take care.